You ever do something that feels smart in theory, but involves a box cutter and slowly mounting regret? Also, potentially a lot of bandages. I'm taking you inside of a picture book, literally, with a blade, because that seems like a great idea. Just to be clear, I picked up this copy from the Goodwill bins, which, let's be honest, seems to be the waiting room adjacent to the landfill. So, no, I'm not destroying a childhood treasure. I'm repurposing a forgotten one. And I'm doing it because the physical construction of a picture book, it matters. Like, a lot. We're going to talk a lot about the story, the characters, the themes, but everything in a picture book, everything from how it's bound to how it's folded affects how the story is told and how a reader interacts with it. I'm Nick. This is Dr. Cranky Pants Reads, and today we're doing a little hands-on exploration. I've got my first aid kit at the ready. The dust jacket. Hold it in your hands and it's easy to dismiss. Shiny, removable, and destined for the back seat of a minivan. But this thing, it's prime real estate. We're told not to judge books by their covers, but we do exactly that. And publishers know it. The dust jacket is marketing. Plain and simple. It's trying to catch your eye across a crowded bookshelf. The front cover needs to say, I'm funny, or I'm magical, or I'll make your 7-year-old cry in a productive way. Flip it over, and you get the flap copy. Those little blurbs that sum up the story in 75 words or less, while sneakily slipping in words like heartwarming or whimsical. You might even get a headshot of the author looking out from the back like they definitely have strong opinions about artisanal jam. You take it off, and what do you find? Underneath the jacket are the boards, the hard covers that give the book its shape. This is where you start to see what the publisher thinks is going to last. Sometimes the cover design is printed right onto the boards. Other times it's completely plain, or something else completely different. So, pro tip, look underneath your dust jacket. The actual readers, the kids, rarely even see the dust jacket. It rips, it crumples, it gets lost under the couch. So the design on the boards, that's what they're forming a relationship with. That's what they recognize when they pull it off the shelf again and again. The boards are also pretty practical. They protect the interior pages from bending, water, and the occasional jelly smear. And they anchor everything else we're about to cut into. Speaking of which, when you crack the book open, the first thing you'll see are the end papers. These sheets of paper glued to the insides of the boards. Now, there's one in the front, one in the back. And on the surface, they're decorative, but they're actually doing some really important work. Way more than just being decorative. End papers are load-bearing structures. They literally hold the book together, binding the boards to the pages. And here's where it gets fun. A lot of illustrators use this space narratively. Let's go back to Bluebird, a book I utilized earlier. If we look at the end papers, we get a very different story at the beginning of the book than we do at the end of the book. Now, other books will often have end papers that are just one singular color. And this might be a little bit more boring, but the color gives a lot of clues to what's inside. Sometimes end papers will show things like maps, patterns, objects from the story, or even full-blown wordless scenes. And it's one of the first signs to a kid that you should be paying attention, because the story, It might have started before the title page. Also note, this is where I start cutting. Just a gentle slice along the hinge. Let's hope I don't regret this. And voila, we're in, laid down for safety. Now that we've pulled the pages out, there's a couple of things that we're going to notice. It looks like this is one just solid book, but actually it's 3 or more books that are sewed together and have a center. So you can see the center stitching down this way. And then let me pull apart another one. Where is the break here? I think it's there. Ha. Ha 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 ha. 10, 11, 12. Lies. 12 pages each. So once you pull out the pages, you'll notice something. They're folded. And that's because most picture books are built from signatures, large printed sheets that are folded, stacked, sewn, and then trimmed into pages. Each signature ranges from about 8 to 12 pages. And most picture books use 2 to 3 signatures. So 16 folded pages equals about 32 pages total. And that's really the number that this industry of children's literature uses as its standard. Now, in this example, we had a slightly different signature size, but you could tell that the number of pages wasn't decided by the author. It was decided by the publisher. Now, if you look at a binding, you don't have to pull apart your book like we did to get a sense of how many signatures are in a book. You can typically look at the binding and you'll see them gathered right there. And here's where things get really nerdy. The 8-page spread structure, it determines pacing. Understanding signatures helps us understand the structure of children's books because they determine pacing. Writers and illustrators know they have a certain number of dramatic beats, meaning they have a limited number of chances to move the plot forward before the story has to wrap up. If you've ever wondered why picture books feel so tight and rhythmic and well-timed, it's not just talent, it's math and the realization that you only have so many signatures to get the work done in your book. You want a longer book? Add another signature, or perhaps your signatures can be more pages than just 8. But that also means more cost, more risk, more pages for a kid to tear through, literally and emotionally. This is what a spread looks like. 2 pages that form a single visual and narrative unit. Spreads are everything. Each one carries a major moment, whether it's the inciting incident, the conflict, the climax, or a quiet beat of reflection. Don't worry, we're going to tackle more about that when we think about layout later. But for now, just know this. The spread is the drumbeat of a picture book. And there's a limited number of beats, so authors and illustrators have to use them wisely. Okay, we've ripped it apart, but before we close, let's talk about the paratext. The parts of the book that surround the story, but aren't the story in the traditional sense. When we're talking about paratext, we're talking about things like the title page. This is where the credits and some clues live. We're also talking about the dedication page, which is always worth a reading as it sometimes gives clues. Oftentimes, if you're reading a nonfiction book, you'll encounter some back matter. We'll explore this in our last module a bit more. And this is where nonfiction books tend to hide bonus material, or authors leave us some thoughtful notes. Don't skip these. They can provide really important parts to understanding the book better and are gold mines for teachers and readers alike. Kids learn how to become better readers by realizing that books are constructed and with some pretty specific purposes. So, what did we learn from our little autopsy here? One, that the physical structure of a book is part of the storytelling, that the shortness of a picture book, 32 to, I would say, 48 pages, isn't a choice. It's a constraint. And because they have so many constraints, authors and illustrators use every flap, fold, and glued down end paper to do some kind of narrative labor. And that when we teach kids to notice these things, not just the words or the pictures, but the architecture, we're giving them tools to read more deeply and critically. So next time you pick up a picture book, look past the text. Peek under the jacket, flip to the end papers, think about what those spreads are doing within the story. And if you ever need to demonstrate this in class, maybe don't use a box cutter. Yeah, no, probably not a good idea.